This is my show. You can hang out if you want. Hi, everybody. How you all doing? You know, it's interesting. Of all my appearances, this is the most recent. It's true. No, I'm fine. Thank you, miss. Thank you. Okay. Huh. I'm not a bad-looking man. A little short, a little stout. Nothing wrong with that, right? I was listening to CNN this morning. Do you ever listen to CNN? Yeah. Did you hear about that little kid, that little boy that was born in Phoenix last night? Or a little baby boy born without eyelids? Yeah, it was on CNN. I just heard it this morning, and they rushed the little kid off to the very famous children's hospital in Phoenix, and the doctor was able to fashion eyelids for him. Who's that? Who's that? Is that Manu? Come on, man up, Manu. Man up, Manu. I'm telling that thing I heard on CNN this morning about the little boy born in Phoenix without eyelids. And they rushed him to the children's hospital, and the doctor was able to fashion eyelids out of the kid's foreskin. It's amazing. And they were talking to the doctor, and he said he would see fine. He might be a little cockeyed, but...
You were booing at me.
My wife was at church recently, and the priest was giving us... talking about how everything, old and new, everything under the sun could be shown in the Bible. The Bible talked about it. And my wife said, after this, she went up to the priest, she said, I think you're wrong, Father. I think the Bible doesn't mention PMS. And the priest said, well, let me look into that. And a week later, we went back to church, and he showed her a passage in the Bible that said, and Mary rode Joseph's ass all the way to Bethlehem. Thank you. You're so kind. Stupid joke. Anyway, that's it for my jokes. I'm gonna tell some jokes at dinner tonight. Because that's what I do. Tim plays music. I tell jokes. I collect jokes. I've collected jokes since I was a little kid. My great uncle Joe Phillips was a stand-up comic back in the 20s and 30s and 40s. He was a vaudeville comic. And when he got to be an older man, when he was like 60, he used to be on Jack Parr. Do you remember the Jack Parr? He'd come on Jack Parr, and he was a Broadway actor too. He played Little Abner on Broadway, and he did some movies and stuff. But he'd come over to our house when I was a little boy, when I was like 6 or 7. And some kids get attached to magic and something, but for me, his comedy made, whenever he'd tell the punchline, it was kind of like the rabbit coming out of the hat for me, you know? And I used to listen to him, and I still remember part of his routine. This week he had a routine. He did the same routine, but this is before film, so he could do the same routine from theater to theater, and nobody would have seen him. And he would say, he was a little guy, he was like 5'2", and he'd come out and he had these 2 big blonde bimbos on either side of him, and that was part of the act. And he'd always go like that, and he'd turn and he'd knock in their breath like that. That was part of the joke. He'd say, yeah, I got a friend named August A. August. The A is to break the monotony. He went into the war the 1st of September. That was the last of August. He got over there, they said, fire at will. He said, who's Will? And he had this whole pattern. That was part of the pattern. It was very funny. He said, yeah, I finally got back. He got back from the war. I got a hotel room overlooking the ocean completely. It was funny back then. And today it doesn't have the same punch because, you know. But in any event, so I collected jokes, and I have stored jokes in my head my whole life. It's almost like Tourette's in a way, I guess. It's not always a pleasant thing, because everything somebody says reminds me of a joke I've heard, and I have to stop myself from telling the joke. Especially in certain circumstances, you know, at a funeral or something like that, and it says something, you go, oh, that reminds me. No, you can't be real careful sometimes with when you say them. But in any event, are you filming this? You're photographing this? That's excellent. How do I look? Pretty good?
Looking pretty good.
Now, how you doing, son? That's your son right there? What's your name?
Alex,
Hi, Alex. How are you?
good.
How old are you?
11.
God, so young. I'll be 25 next week. 52. 52. No, I'm a lot older than you. When I was a kid, Captain Crunch was just a private. You believe that? It's the honest God truth. I've got a picture of Christ, and it's autographed. That's how old I am right now. But seriously, when I was a young man, the Dead Sea was just sick at that point. It's been over the years that it developed into a Dead Sea. Let me ask you a question. How many people out there have questions? Does anybody have a question? What did Manu do when he was up here? Did he do anything interesting? I can't imagine. He what? he was watching himself. He was amazing. I'm gonna lose a little weight. I just found out my blood type is ragu. Thank you. Hey, Mark, how are you? See, I remember some of you guys from when you came up for Paris. Holly? Yeah? Who else I remember here? This is my old friend. He comes. Why don't you introduce yourself to the crowd? I've seen this man at more conventions. He comes more than anybody. God bless you. You having a good day today? Oh, thank you so much. Paula and Rick. What? Dick. I was close. I'm just seeing if I remember any of these names of the people who came up. Yeah, that's all I can recognize right now. Sydney, Ralph, Jerry, there's Louise, Kathy. God, I have a good memory. There's Roberta, there's Bob. Bob, hey Bob, how you doing? See? I remember all these names. I can't, it's like jokes, I can't forget. What are you doing? How you doing?
Taking pictures.
Oh, okay. What are you gonna do with that picture? You're gonna put it in a drawer?
I am.
Yeah, and then by tuck it in your pillow.
Yeah.
You can make a shrine.
I'm actually going to.
Okay.
It's going to be awesome.
Oh, be great. So how many people out there are from Cincinnati? Awesome. Great. I don't know why I asked that question. How many people from Perth, Australia? Anybody? Are you from Adelaide? I was just in Adelaide. Yeah, about for a convention about 11 months ago. I went to the Botanical Gardens. Adelaide's great. How long have you been over here? Since July. I saw the girl the girl who played with fire when I was in Adelaide. That's what I did. I went to Adelaide and I saw the girl who played with fire. Most people explore Australia. I went to the movies. I did go to the Adelaide Botanical Gardens though, and I went to the Adelaide Zoo and saw the pandas. God, they're boring. They're pretty, but I mean, all they do is just sit there and eat bamboo. After a couple of minutes, it's like, okay, you know. Anyway, what else? I don't know what the hell I'm doing up here. I mean, what do I do? I don't know. I should talk about the show, Star Trek. That was a good show. Anybody have any questions about the show at all? Because it'd be great. Yes?
Oh, I was just, it wasn't about the show. I was going to ask what projects you were doing now.
What projects am I doing right now? Well, I'm actually, I just finished, I did a bunch of guest stars this year, and a movie and a play. I did a show called Risley and Isles. Has anybody ever heard of that? Yeah. I did a show called The Good Guys, and a show called The Middle, and then I was on Days of Our Lives, and I did a movie called Audrey that's going to probably come out in a couple of months. And I did a new play called Wirehead, and then the year before I was on Broadway for a year with Nathan Lane in a show called November. And but right now I'm writing a play that I should finish writing it, but I'm rewriting it. It's going to be hopefully done in London in the spring. And so that's kind of what I'm spending most of my time at, and playing the saxophone, which I love to do. And I'm in a bunch of bands, rock bands and a couple of jazz bands. And so I played the sax when I was a little kid, and when I got to high school I dropped it. And I wished I hadn't, because I'd have incredible chops right now. But I didn't pick it up again until I was like in my 40s. But I really, anybody play a musical instrument out there? Don't give it up. Stay with it the rest of your lives, because it's really, what are you looking at her for? What, she dropped something? Did you used to play a musical instrument? Would you? Piano? Right. Well, and I have an action figure, which is great because I can play with myself in public. Which is terrific. You people just coming in, we're not doing anything. We're just hanging out. And you had a question, yes sir?
Actually, it's not a question, and it's a huge fan thing, but I think, I speak for a lot of us, we have grown up with you.
Mm-hmm.
You and I are the same age. We have watched you do all the parts and all these characters and all this stuff. And, you have entertained me and now entertaining my family with your work.
Well, thank you.
So much.
Well, you're welcome. I appreciate that. It's real nice of you to say that. Thank you. Wow. You don't have a question, though? You have a question? You have a question.
How much creative input did you have with your character on subject?
How much creative input? Not a whole lot. I mean, from the fact that I was cast, that's who they wanted, who I am, and that's what came through the character. So pretty much your cast, they saw like 500 actors for the role of Neelix, and I was the one they said that's kind of what Neelix is like, but Ethan Phillips is like. That's what they decided. So all I had to kind of do, that's all you ever do is in a part, I think for the most part, is you use a part of yourself that, I mean, there are true chameleons, you know. When you look at the big stars, Denzel Washington or, Paul Newman or, I can't think of a million names, but they're guys who, they play themselves and then they try to tell the truth through their work, you know. I tried to do some stuff, I remember when I started out, as I was playing the character, I remember in a very early episode, Cass handed me a bowl of mashed potatoes. And I took it as the character, and I started eating it with my tongue, thinking, well, that would be an interesting choice. He's an alien. Let's find alien things for him to do. And they said, no, he just eats it with a fork and spoon. And I said, but no, the guy's an alien. This is how they eat. I said, they have taste buds all the way down their esophagus. This guy's trigenital. I mean, there's a million things going on with this. I invented all these ideas, but they didn't want them. They wanted him to behave kind of like a human being with rubber on. You know, that's how they wanted the alien to be. So that's what I ended up doing, pretty much by myself. I tried to alienize him, but then I realized the makeup did all the work. You know, the costume and the makeup and the situation so much do so much for you. I remember when I was a young actor, I was just telling the story at lunch. I was 21 years old and I was cast in a play called Galileo. And I was cast as the little monk. And it was a saddle shoes. Oh, man.
This is the third time.
Yes. I remember you. I used to wear saddle shoes in high school. I went to high school in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. What a tough neighborhood. I mean, the only safe way to get through was as a bullet. I remember my first week there, I asked a cop, I'm like, how do I get to the subway? He said, I don't know, no one's ever made it. But I wore saddle shoes, and I wore saddle shoes, and this is a tough, I used to get mugged constantly. But, and they're the real kind, with the round, because the ones they make now are sharp pointed. Those are the old, did you get those on eBay or something?
No, I got them at Walmart like 10 years ago. I bought several pairs.
Oh, you're very cool. What was I saying? I have no idea what I was saying.
21.
Oh, when I was 21. Yes, thank you. I got cast as this little monk. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm playing a monk. You know, I got to figure out, how can I be holy? How can I look prayerful? You know, how can I look spiritual? I got to think of a way to do that. And then a week before the performance, I saw my costume and it was a monk's outfit. And I went, I don't have to do anything. I could wear that and do cartwheels and they're going to think I'm a monk. And it was a big insight for me as an actor that, the costume is going to do all the work for me here. And it's the same with Neelix. I just have to, I put on that rubber and, you know, he looks like an alien. You're not going to doubt it unless you're really up close and you see the fact that it's glued on. But when I first had the makeup put on, I'm blind as a bat. I can't see anything with my eyes, my glasses. And they put the whole makeup on me, and I had no contacts, and so it just looked like a blur. And then they gave me the fake yellow contacts. They actually were prescription contacts I wanted to show. And I put them on, and I looked at myself, and it was like this stunning thing to see this Neelix character staring back at me. It was the first time I could see him, and I went, wow, what a cool character, you know? It was great. Yes, sir?
How long did that take per day?
7 days to put the makeup on. and a month and a half to take it off. No, it took about 3 hours to put it on, about an hour and a half to take it off.
Were they able to refine that over the years?
Yeah, over the years she cut about 30 minutes off it. It started at like 4 hours. But he got much better. The same guy did it every day for 7 years, Scott Wheeler. And we're still good friends to this day. Real great guy. Yes, sir?
My ex-wife referred to your character as Old Fishhead. What sort of reaction did you get to the look of the character?
Old Fishhead. That's not bad. He looks like he has gills almost.
What sort of reaction did you get to the look?
Well, you know, everybody worked there. They've all seen a million characters in rubber and stuff. So for everybody else, there's another guy with, you know, an oid on his forehead. But he looked a little like a hedgehog. I didn't know it was a makeup character when I auditioned for him, because it described it in the breakdown as a humanoid. And I just thought a humanoid really was a human with like an oid. I don't know what an oid was. So I said the guy's got an oid on his face. Like a rooster has a snood. I didn't know what it meant. But then right before I went in for my final audition, I was sitting next to this woman who was auditioning for Kate. And we were chatting and she said, by the way, have you seen the drawings of your character? I said, no. She said, oh, he looks just like a hedgehog. And then they called me in and I was like, what? And I went in with that knowledge that he was an alien. I mean, I knew he was an alien, but that he looked really bizarre. Originally, the temples were rouge, were red. And we had the makeup done, and they had to take it up to Rick Berman to approve. And he said, it looks like he's got a fever or he's wounded or something. So she said, change the color. So they changed it to yellow. But that's the. And then he has that little slit in his nose, which I thought was for credit cards. But apparently it's not. That was a complete accident. When they were baking the rubber, that seam split. And they decided to keep it because they thought it looked good, which was a happy accident because if you look at a lot of animals, they have a seam in their nose. Dogs and cats, they have a little seam down their nose, so it kind of gave them an animalistic look. But it was not a pleasant job because you were encapsulated in that makeup. You could not sleep because you would crush the hair. You couldn't talk on the phone because it would stick to your makeup. You couldn't really read because you had these thick contacts on. And so you were I was usually in the makeup anywhere from 15 to 18 hours a day. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't sleep. All I could do was kind of talk with the crew and hang out by craft service. When I finished that job, I was 205 pounds. Because I just ate constantly. But the good thing about the job was they didn't use me that much. One of the reasons they didn't use me that much is because it was so tedious. If they gave Neelix a show, it took me about 2 or 3 weeks to recuperate from it. Because you were just there for 18, 19 hours a day for day after day after day, and your face also got very chapped. You know, even though they tried to remove it as well as they could with this stuff called isopropyl murostate, which is a very thick oil. Even if you wear that for 5 days, your face is red for a week. You just can't put anything on. So that was another reason they couldn't use it as much. But it was cool with me. You know, I didn't mind. Yes.
Sorry to digress, but back to your saxophone. What prompted or gave you the incentive?
To play the saxophone originally?
No, to go back.
Oh, my wife got me a saxophone for my birthday. She surprised me.
Originally.
Originally, did anybody remember a band called the Dave Clark Five?
Yeah.
Remember they had a saxophone player in it? Well, I saw that saxophone player and I thought he looked really cool. So I was like 14, so I said to my mom, I said, oh, that guy looks really cool, I want to do that. And then about a year or two later, I started growing up and I started listening to some of the giants like Ben Webster and Coltrane and you know, all the geniuses of the saxophone, and I was really glad I took it up. But I also knew, no matter what I do, I'm never going to sound like these guys because they just are too brilliant for me. But to this day, that's the kind of music I listen to all the time. Is all the great saxophone, Gene Ammons and Buddy Tate, and all the Texas tenors, and all those dudes from you know, all those guys. Well, I get to talk about the saxophone forever. But it's a fascinating instrument, and they say that the tenor saxophone sounds most like a human voice of any instrument. That's what people say. They also call it the devil's horn, because back in the 50s it was, you know, the rock and roll. The saxophone was the lead guitar. And all these session players, these amazing players played on all these rock and roll records. You listen to something like "Come Go With Me" by the Del Vikings. They have a great sax solo in the middle of it. That's some great session player, coming in and just doing that for a couple of bucks, and then going back up to one of the clubs and playing, jazz for the rest of the day. Anyway, any other questions? Yes, you have a question, Alex.
Did you ever talk to anyone else on the show now?
Do I talk to anyone else on the show now? Sure. I see Tim Russ and I are very good friends, which is why it's fun to be here with him now. We go to a lot of movies together. I'm friends with Bob Picardo, and those are the two I probably see the most, Bob and Tim. But all the guys, the six of us, get together every 6 months and have dinner together. But I never see the ladies. I saw Kate when I was in New York doing that Broadway show. I saw Kate quite a bit. Yes, sir.
How was it working on First Contact?
How was it working on First Contact? It's hard to remember. It's a long time ago. It's like 15 years ago. I just remember we did it at the Union Station down in Los Angeles. And I was only on it a day. It was great to work with Jonathan Frakes. Everything was put in digitally after, including my performance. Thank you. Very kind. But it was fun. It's always fun. For the most part, every job I do is fun. I mean, let's face it. What I do is, I just get paid to pretend. That's really it. And all acting is pretending really well. Anybody knows that. But I mean, you can go to school for it and stuff. But come on, if you like pretending and you want to get paid for it, then you become an actor. Most people don't do it because they think it's a joke. I wanted to do it my whole life, but it wasn't until I was in college, so I met a bunch of people that said, we're going to do this for a living. And I went, you're kidding? You're going to actually do this for a living? They said, yeah. And I looked around and I saw all these people doing it on screen and stage, and I said, I think I can fake it just as much as they can. So it must just be a matter of luck and tenacity. I never wanted to be a star, and I never really became a star. I'm a television actor who is recognizable, but all I ever wanted to do was pay my bills. If I could pay my rent from acting, I was going to be a happy man, and I ended up being able to do that. A lot of people can't, because it's, if they were deer, you'd have to shoot half the herd. There's just too many actors, let's face it. There's just not enough parts. Yeah, sure, sir.
Funny behind-the-scenes story?
Funny behind-the-scenes stories? Every day was funny behind-the-scenes stories. All we did was we were known for joking way too much. And they were funny at the things they wouldn't sound funny to you now, but they were funny on the set. And I can't really convey what we did, but we just joked around constantly. The biggest goofball was Robert Beltran. I mean, he couldn't remember any of his lines. He just couldn't remember his lines, no matter what he did. And he used to write them on the bottom of his coffee cup. So sometimes you'll see him in the show going, Captain, on deck 17, whatever he'd say. But we have on the set a script supervisor, and his name was Cosmo. And if you forgot your line, you'd go, Cosmo, line, and Cosmo he'd be on the script and he'd read your line off. But Beltran was doing that all the time. Captain, Cosmo, what's my line? Captain, Cosmo, what is it? So, one day, in the first season, I called Beltran at home, and I got his answering machine. And he said, hi, this is Robert. Cosmo, what's my name? I realized he had hired Cosmo to cue him at home. That's not a true story. I just made that up. Yes, Dave.
Did you ever move around props?
Do I ever move around props?
Yeah, the prop would be in a certain space for somebody to do a scene. Did props get moved around at all as part of these gags that you would do?
Yeah, probably. We used to, yeah, I guess so. I worked in the kitchen, and we had all that food that was hanging on was all fake. It wasn't fake; it was real food, but it was old. Like we had a bowl of nuts that had been there since the Taft administration. And these things would just sit there, and nobody would ever reference them. They were always sitting there. If we ate any real food, the prop guys would cook it, and then they would give it to us. But anything I was cooking was just dummy food. But we were doing a show called Fair Trade. And I remember the title because it was one of the shows where there was another Talaxian, Wixaban, I think his name was. And we hired this actor, a wonderful actor, and he was on the set trying to improvise during the rehearsal. And he said, well, Neil said blah, 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 blah. And he stuck his hand, he put one of those nuts in his mouth that had been sitting there since the Pleistocene era. And he chewed it, and it was, and we had to stop the show for a half an hour while this guy was resuscitated because it was so awful. And the other thing I remember about that show is I'm going down to deal with these intergalactic drug dealers, you know? Apparently, I'm going to go face them, and there's going to be a big fight, and I could possibly die or some crazy stuff like that. And I'm a little nervous about going down, so I go to meet Robbie's character, Tom Paris, to ask him his advice. And a couple of things I remember about this scene is we shot the scene in the science lab, which was a standing set, but you don't see it in many shows. It's actually a set where people always say, well, how come you and Cass never really hooked up? I never had any kind of closure and stuff, and we did. We shot a scene in the science lab where it was after Warlord, and I go up to Cass and Neelix says, I understand. I know that we drifted apart and everything like that, but I want you to know that I'm always going to be your friend. And we had this real nice warm moment, but they cut it. They never used it in any of the shows. But anyway, so I go into the science lab and I go to Tom. I go, Tom, I know you've been in trouble in your past and blah, blah, blah. How do I deal with this? Should I just go down? He said, just go down and do your best. And blah, blah, blah. It was just some kind of scene like that. So I said, thank you, and I'm leaving. And as I leave, I hear Tom go, oh, by the way, I love those Andorian sweet roots you put out this morning. And even though I'm about to face my death, I turn and I'm like, wow. I can't believe I was complimented on my food, because I'm only complimented twice in the whole show on my food. Once when Garrett Wang's character orders a second helping of Leola root stew, and then in that scene where Robbie complimented my Andarians, who gives a shit? But that's the truth. You know what I'm saying? You have another question? Boy, you're a pistol. What do you got there?
Where was your last year? We talked a little bit about the casting before Janeway, the actress. Did you have any?
Javier Bugeaud.
Yeah.
No, I had no interaction with her. She shot all bridge scenes for 2 or 3 days and then moved on. So I do have call sheets though with her name on them. I saved the call sheets with her name on them, so I think that's an interesting artifact. But I don't know what to do with them. So, yes.
I like seeing your head blow up big in one show.
What's that?
I like it when your head blew up big.
The head blew up big? Did your plane lose oxygen on the way in? I'm just curious. No, I'm just teasing. How you doing, sir? Good. Who's that? Oh, Jesus, I got it. See, that's why I look at myself. I didn't watch the last 6 seasons of the show. I only watched the first season a little bit because I can't stand to see myself on camera. I have done 352 television shows. I counted them up last month. 5 years at Benson, 7 years of Star Trek, and about another 60 guest stars. I've done 35 features, and I have seen maybe 1% of them because when I look at myself, I get nauseous. Have you ever heard yourself on a tape recorder? And you go, is that me? Imagine doubling and hearing your voice and seeing yourself. Do anybody like to watch themselves in home movies or stuff? No, you don't. It's the same thing when you do this for a living. You don't want to watch it. And all you do is you think, oh my God, I wish I had made a different choice, or I should have done, why did I have to do that? You know, so you're constantly criticizing yourself, so you don't really want to watch it. Yes, sir.
Well, primarily as your character on Voyager, you provided a lot of comic relief and levity into the general tone of the program. But occasionally they put you in an episode that was primarily you in a more dramatic and emotional role. Was it a challenge for you to adapt the character into more of that direction?
No, it's basically the same thing. Hang on, I want to ask somebody a question back here. Hello? I think I left. Hi, you're in charge. I think I left my little bag with my phone and stuff in the restaurant. Could you go see if it's there? Yeah. Where is it? Oh, great. I just want to get a new piece of nicotine gum. I quit smoking like 7 years ago, but I still chew the gum. It's the worst addiction in the world. Anybody smoke out there? Yeah, try giving it up. It's really hard. Anyway, excuse me. I'll auction this off. Okay, yeah. No, it's the same thing. it's really the same thing. Again, whether you're playing comedy or drama, I think you just you memorize the lines and then try to figure out how to say them in the way that sounds most real. And even if it's comedy, it's like I was telling these jokes out here. I just tell it like it's a real story, and then if it's written funny, then it'll be funny. It's all in the writing. Acting is really just interpretive, So, but the drama can be hard. They both have their challenges, But it comes down to the same thing, just trying to tell the story, of what the writer wants the story to be. What's your place in the story? It's like this big picture, and you're just one of the characters. That's why I wanted to be an actor. So I wanted to be the guy inside the illusion, walking around. I didn't want to direct it. I didn't want to write it. I didn't want to light it. I didn't want to cater it. I just wanted to be the guy inside, walking around, part of the illusion. Yes, sir?
You've been talking about the comic influence on the life of a young person,
Yeah.
relative and all. We've had so many comic geniuses over the years. Did you pick out a couple of 2 or 3 that influenced you?
Well, influenced me. I have comics that I love. Alan King, Jack Benny, Bob Hope. I thought Bob Hope was hysterical. And more modern comics I really like. C.K. is that his name? C.K. I can't remember his name. Huh? Yeah, I think he's terrific. And just whatever. I don't know. I wasn't influenced by anybody so much as I just appreciated what they did and wanted to kind of emulate them. But I remember Alan King, particularly as a child. Alan King really made me. You guys remember Alan King? You're probably too young for him. Shelley Berman was another one I really liked. Bob Newhart and stuff like that. Yes, sir.
You were talking about doing a lot of stuff outside of Voyager.
Uh-huh.
I know you don't watch them, but is there one that you're more proud of, or you like to show it to your family, or
Of work I did?
yeah, of other stuff outside of Voyager that you've actually watched or enjoyed that you did?
I like watching The Island. I did a movie called The Island with Scarlett Johansson. And I actually went to see that because they had a cast and crew screening, and I thought that was a lot of fun. I can't think of any others. I've done tons of them since 1980, all the way from Heart to Heart, through all these. I play, a lot of people. I play a lot of the same kind of character a lot of the time. I play like the nervous white victim, or the unctuous administrator, or the officious prick, or these kind of. I play a lot of bureaucrats and administrators and stuff like that, and pedophiles, all kinds of things. The weird. I'm the weird guy. I usually play the weird guy because it's interesting because. That's how if you don't look like, I'm not a normal leading man guy. Normal leading guy is like, 5'10", he's got a full head of hair, and he's gonna play the chief, the president, the head dude. And then the short little guy is his underling, or the short little guy is the criminal, and stuff like that. Like, that's like it in real life? No. In real life, the short little guy can be head of the corporation, and the real good looking guy can be the killer. But in TV, sometimes they think that audiences have these visual expectations, and so they try to fulfill them. And it's called typecasting. Now, they don't always do that. And sometimes, especially on stage, I get to play more powerful people on stage. But in TV, sometimes you're just by the way that you look, you're considered a kind of a comic actor or something like that. And you can't fight against it, and nor can you complain. You're lucky anytime you get a job. Yes?
Speaking of bureaucrat types, in Green Card, any stories of when you were working with Gerard Depardieu?
Yes, there is a great story where I did a film called Green Card with Gerard Depardieu, who's a very famous French actor and has done hundreds of films in France. And when I was in college, I loved French cinema, and I used to go to French films all the time. And we were sitting on the set one day. He was a very nice guy, Gerard Depardieu. He was a huge guy. He ate life. This guy was he loved to drink and smoke and eat and flirt, and he was just this incredibly intense character and a very, very famous actor in France. Big guy. And we were sitting on the set one day, and we were talking about French movies. And I'm going, oh yeah, I saw this. And then we came to this one movie I was talking, it was a film called La Maîtresse, which was by a French director, Barbet Schroeder. And I remember saying to Gerard, I said, oh yeah, this movie, La Maîtresse, I really loved it. It was kind of obscure, but I thought it was terrific. And I can't, who was the lead in that? And Gerard said to me, c'est moi. I said, oh right, yeah, you were the lead in that, yeah. He was a great guy. And when he met my wife, he kissed her hand and went, enchanté. And my wife was like, for the next 2 months, she's swooning. She thought it was the coolest thing. I worked with some big stars. I did a film called Lean on Me with Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman is one of the most interesting men I've ever met in my life. Morgan Freeman is a guy who who seemed to me could only talk to one person at a time because he listened to everything you said. He opened his eyes and he stared into you and he listened to what you said. And he didn't care if you were an extra or if you were the producer of the film. He made no distinction. He was equally interested in everybody. But he was so consumed by what you were saying and so interested that he couldn't take in more than 2 people at a time. It was kind of interesting. He was genius in that movie. It was called Lean on Me. He played Joe, the guy from New Jersey who went around with a bat. He was the... Yeah, it was terrific. I worked with Mel Gibson, who was, I thought, a great guy, terrific guy. I know he's had a lot of flack in the last couple of years, but working with him was wonderful. I did a play with Kevin Kline. I could tell you a story about that, but I won't because it'll go out on the internet. No, sorry guys, in the old days we could do something like that. But now you say anything untoward or crazy or scurrilous and boom, it's out there and you're being crucified for it 2 days later. Yes, sir. Yes, Mark.
You mentioned that you were doing a writing project
No, I've written, this is my second play. I wrote a play earlier that was done, premiered in Philadelphia at the Festival Theater there, and it's been done a whole bunch of places all over. And this is my second play, but I do it as a hobby. I write plays as a hobby. But this one turned out to be pretty good. It's a full length, so they're thinking of doing it. They've done a couple of readings in London, and they maybe want to do it over there in the spring. I'm just a writer. I mean, there's a part for me, but when you write a play and say, well, are you going to play the part? And you feel like, I've already played it. I wrote the damn thing. There's nothing more I could do with it, you know? Yes, sir.
I asked Robin about parts, because he's a big movie buff.
Right.
Parts he would like to play. In play, if you could pick any part, any play that you would like to recreate, what part would that be?
The question he asked if I could do any part in any play, what would I want to do? Be Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman. Willie Loman in that, and someday, ultimately, I'd love to do Prospero in The Tempest. Those are 2 things I'd like to do. But I'll take anything. They're going to pay me for it. Yes? I didn't have much exposure to Star Trek before the role, except that when I was in grad school, I used to watch the original series around 5 o'clock in the afternoon with my roommates for about a year, and that was the only exposure I had to it. And I really dug it. I thought it was great. But other than that, until I got cast as that Ferengi on Next Generation, up until that point, I had nothing to do with it. So no, I never thought, you know, nothing. I mean, I knew about it and stuff like that. And I loved it with the original series when I watched it. It was fantastic, you know. But then, yes, sir.
Just sort of speaking on the idea of roles you might choose, there seems to be a large, wide-scale societal perception of sort of people getting typecast when they're known for a particular role, particularly like the sci-fi community, because people get a little fanatical about it. Were you sort of aware of that possibility, or were you worried, or have you run across situations where you sort of feel like you've been maybe typecast a little more in that role because you're perhaps the most well-known for one particular role in Star Trek?
I wasn't really worried about it. You know, the thing about acting, except for the handful of guys and gals who become big stars, you know, your Brad Pitts, you know, and Meryl Streeps and stuff like that, of which there's only a handful. I mean, they make a fortune, and they're fine the rest of the time. But the rest of us, we take what we can get. And when something comes up where it's a role like Star Trek, and I go, God, I've got 7 years of employment here. They can typecast me all the way to the bank. Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make my nut. And it's really hard to make your nut as an actor. So I was grateful for it. And I was covered in rubber, and I'm a character guy. So I'm always going to be typecast as the character guy, you know? And you got to take what you can get in this business. You know, sometimes I rued the day I took Benson. I said, well, I could have stayed in New York and been a great stage actor. But I had a lot of friends who didn't get offered Benson, stayed in New York, and are starving. You know, so you just don't know what you got to take Never look a gift horse in the mouth.
Right.
Take what you get when it comes, and go with it. There are examples of people who have turned down big opportunities because they believed in some higher level of craft. And I think a majority of them wish they didn't turn down the opportunity. The ones that did turn it down and became something else, God bless them, I'm glad for them. You had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I love the character Neelix. I love Voyager anyway. How uncomfortable was the costume?
We were talking about it. It was very uncomfortable. It's like wearing a mattress, having a mattress glued to your head. It's disgusting. And plus, the costume was made out of upholstery and curtains and stuff. He didn't use fabric. He took couches and took the crap and made a costume out of it. It was sick. But they look good. They look great.
Thank you for Neelix.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for enjoying it. Appreciate that. Yes?
Speaking of Benson, I used to watch you on that, loved the show. What was it like working with Robert Guillaume and Renee?
Wonderful. It was an incredible cast. Robert's an amazing man. He used to train as an opera singer. He was one of the first guys to do Jacques Brel's Alive and Well. He's the only black actor who ever played the Phantom of the Opera. He's the only one who's ever done that. He has an opera voice. He's a very, very, very funny man. I mean, and he kept us laughing a whole bunch of the time. He's a powerful guy. He had a stroke recently. You probably know in the last 5 or 6 years. I went up to visit him in the old age home, but he's still sharp as a tack. He was a great guy. But he was under a lot of pressure when we were doing Benson because it was one of the very few shows that had a black actor in the lead. So he was being, I believe, pressured by the NAACP to hire black directors and black writers and stuff. And while he wanted to do that, at the same time, he didn't want to feel like he was in a position, so he felt pressured. When I worked with him in Lean On Me, he was much more relaxed. And in the 6 weeks I worked on Lean On Me, I got to know Robert Guillaume better than I did in the 5 years I worked on Benson. Because he was chilled out by then, he didn't have that pressure. When you're the star of a TV show, you are, there's a lot of pressure on you. Some people handle it well, some people don't, Bob handled it very well. Yes, sir, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just curious. You played against Renee in Benson. What was it like to come up to see him again when it came to DS9?
Well, I remember when Renee got DS9, we went out to lunch and he was talking, he said, I just got this great gig on this show, Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And I said, wow, and I was like really envious of him, because it was a really good gig. He said, we're gonna run 7 years and I do all this, get to go to conventions and stuff. And then 3 years later, I was in the same position, I couldn't believe it. But we used to, if we'd run into, because they shot DS9 right across the street from us. Right. And if I happened to be walking in my Neelix costume and then Renee was in his Odo outfit, we'd shout each other, we'd do lines from Benson to each other. And people who knew it would laugh a lot, like, Clayton, the governor wants you. And he goes, Pete, stop it. And we'd do these lines as Odo and Neelix. I did a guest spot on Boston Legal, 3 episodes of Boston Legal, and on that show was me, Renee, Armin, and Shatner. It was like a Star Trek reunion. It was really weird. Yeah.
Whenever you get a script ready, when you read it, do you form an impression of a finished product?
So I have a question. Actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second, hon. I'm answering this question here. He wants to know if when I get a script and I read it, do I have a finished impression?
Does it come out the way you thought?
Well, and does it come out the way I thought? When I read a script, obviously, I'm looking at the character that I'm cast as. And the first read-through is the most exciting read-through because I learn everything about the character and what the other characters think of me and what I do in the script. And I get all these instincts as soon as I read the line. I go, well, what is he? And I tell you, the first instinct I have is often the best. And so I do have an idea at the end of it how I want to go with the character. But I always translate it into action. What is he doing? Rather than what is he, see when, people say, I want you to cry in this. I go, yeah, but what makes him cry? Why is he crying? That's what I got to figure out, why he's crying. If I can figure out why then I may not cry, but at least the result will be based on something real, Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right. I have a 2-part question for you.
Sure.
Somebody would ever come up to you and say, will you take and do another role for Star Trek, either in a movie or a series? Would you jump at it?
It's hard to say because I don't know. No, I'm sure I probably would, yeah. I don't know if I'd want to wear that makeup again for 7 years, though. Don't think I could do that.
What if it wasn't Neelix? What if it was something else?
Yeah, I'll pretty much take anything but snuff films. I'm an actor for hire. Whatever comes along, I'll do. Yes, sir.
Do you ever have to do any stunts or be in dangerous situations where you felt really nervous?
If there's any kind of dangerous situation, even if you wanted to do it, they won't let you. They get a stuntman for you because you're insured and they don't want to scare you. Unless it's the very last shot of the movie, and they go, "I'll do this," and they say, "Go ahead." The only stunt I think I ever did in my life was a movie called Critters, where I was mauled to death by one of these critters, and they wanted me to be pulled underneath a car, and they were going to get a stunt guy to pull me underneath the car, and I said, "You know what? I can just hang on to the chassis and pull myself in." And he said, "You sure?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I can do that." And that was the only stunt I ever did. But most of the time, you got to get a stunt guy to do it. Yeah, you have a question? Oh, 10 minutes. I got 10 minutes. Any burning desires? Yes.
I see you've done a lot of different things with Neelix, and I know you say you don't like watching yourself, but did you actually have an episode that you liked making? And is there one that you like to watch, maybe when you're not in?
I've never done that before. Let me think. I liked making most of them. I really love to act. So all of them, I enjoy myself.
Well, there's a World War II episode, and there's the one where you're actually the victim of you were playing the person who met the mass murderer, you played a pastor, you played a security person.
Yeah. I remember one show I particularly liked was called Mortal Coil, where I got killed and then came back after 18 hours. I liked that because it was philosophically very interesting. Because the dude dies and he doesn't seem anything. And he was told all this stuff all his life, like I was told. I grew up a Catholic. I was told all this stuff. And everybody's told stuff about the afterlife. And it's all just hogwash because no one knows. You can believe it and that's great, but you don't know for a fact because no one's ever come back to tell us. So he was told he's going to meet all his sisters and his mom and dad and they're going to hang around this beautiful tree, and he dies and there's nothing. And he comes back and he goes, "That was all horseshit." And now he's really depressed and he wants to kill himself. But Chakotay convinces him that even though we don't know if there's anything there, life is still worth living. It's more beautiful than death, and in its time. And I think Thoreau said, "Life is more beautiful than death. Men, moose, and pine trees. And it's more beautiful to be alive than dead." And he said, you're here just to be yourself and do good. And that itself is worthwhile, Not because there's any reward, not because you're going to go to heaven. You're here to be kind to people and help it. That's the only way you can throw any light on anything. Right. And so Neelix, he embraced that and decided not to do away with himself. And I remember loving that show because it had a lot of existential angst in it and a lot of philosophical queries and stuff. Yes, sir?
Do you find yourself having any part of Neelix as part of you now? Picking up any kind of, what Neelix, habits that Neelix had, and finding you picking up, interests that Neelix would have had?
No, not really. Neelix is a character. He was animated by my soul and my heart and my mind and my body. So Neelix owed his animation. I animated the dude. And, I never dreamt like Neelix, and I never really thought of anything about him. He was really just, if I started, but I know what you're saying. No, I took away from him the enjoyment of playing him and being him for 7 years. That's what I took away with him, that pleasure. And I'll always have that, It's a great gift, But any character, I played some sick, evil people. But the only way to play them, too, is to find something in them that you can love. Otherwise, they're impossible to play. Even if you're playing a serial killer, you got to kind of understand where he's coming from and why he is like he is and how come he didn't have the luck to change. And so when you play these malevolent people too, you want to do them justice. It's kind of weird, but yes, sir.
Well, first of all, playing is one of the best roles for you. But I gotta ask, before accepting that role, was there anybody else that tried to take that role as well?
Was there anybody else who wanted to do that role? Yeah. Well, they like I said, they saw a whole ton of character actors over a period of years, period of months. I remember Armin Shimmerman saying to me, they have seen every character actor in New York and LA for this role. I came in towards the end. I was up at Sundance doing theater at Redford Sundance Lab, and my agent called and said, you have an audition for Star Trek. I said, well, I'm not going to be back for weeks and stuff, so I didn't even think about it. And in the interim, they could have cast him, but they didn't. I went back to New York and they put me on videotape, which they then flew to LA. And a couple of weeks later, they said they want to see you out in LA. And I walked in and they'd seen everybody. And at that point, it was down to me and one other guy, an English dude, who, he's been in a bunch of films. I can't remember his name. Real nice guy. And it was just me and him. We were the final two people. But a lot of people wanted to do the role because everybody wants a job. And I was the guy. I walked in and I felt real relaxed at the audition. There were 40 people out there. You know, you don't always feel, I sometimes could be nervous for one person. I could walk into a room with 40 people and feel totally relaxed. Because that's all acting is. It's a relaxed revelation of yourself through the character. That's all it is. And they were all frowning, and they were all, they've been trying to cast this guy for 3 months. I walked in, I was feeling real good. There was one guy in the back of the room, Rick Colby, who directed the pilot. And he was sitting there, he saw, as soon as I walked in, he started smiling. And I said, I'm going to do it for this guy. And I did the whole thing for him. And when it was over, I walked out, and I had no idea if I got it or not. And then 3 weeks later, I called my agent from a phone booth in Greenwich Village. And I said, have you heard anything from Star Trek? He said, I haven't heard anything yet. I remember exactly, I was on the northwest corner of Washington Square Park. It was early August, 1994, and I was on the phone. I remember exactly. And he said, I haven't heard anything yet. There's a rumor from the business department at Paramount that they liked you quite a bit, but we don't know. And he said, hold it, I'm getting a call, hang on. And so he put me on hold. And then he got back on about 4 minutes later. He said, you got the role. I went, oh, cool, man. That's great. You know? So that was exciting. But yeah, a lot of dudes wanted to play it. Yeah, you too. Oh, 3 minutes. Sorry, I had no idea what she was. Yeah. Oh, I got 3 minutes. Yes, sir.
Do you ever have nightmares about the board?
Do I have nightmares about the board? Did your plane lose oxygen on the way in? No, I never have nightmares. I have nightmares about other things, but not the board. I have nightmares about Republicans, but I don't want to go there. Oh, sorry. I don't mean to offend anybody. Yes, ma'am.
Do you cook like
I'm sorry?
Do you cook?
I do cook, yeah. Yeah, I do cook. My wife and I both cook. My wife cooks more, but I cook too. I like to cook. I guess so.
We had Morgan Shepherd last year. He basically gave an actor's class while he was here. He does the character actor.
Right.
And he was, I'm just kind of curious your take on it. Some actors have talked about how they can take a character, pick it up, put it on, and then take it off and go home. Other actors I know, they live that character the whole time they're in that role, even when they're not in front of a camera or an audience. How does that work for you?
He's both different kinds of actors. He's talking about two kinds of actors that live the role and stay in character through the whole shoot. If I had done that for Star Trek, I would have been crazy by the end of 7 years. No, but I've always been a guy who just puts it on and takes it off. In fact, I pride myself on being able to do that. I get a kick out of like being off stage right before my entrance and telling somebody a joke or something, and then it's my call and I go right back and I become the character. Because I've rehearsed it. I've rehearsed the private, believable moment over and over again. So, and then I go and throw it away and just enjoy myself with the other partner I have out there. But some actors, when they play something particularly difficult, yes, they will live it. I've worked with some like Brad Dourif, and he will hold that character, and it leads itself to some amazing work. But it's a process that I don't use. But it's everybody's different. Yeah.
Before you get off the stage, can you sit in the chair?
I sit in the chair, sure. You got another? I saw another hand up there. Yes, sir.
I was just
just wondering, after mentioning about Morgan Shepherd, he said he used like a mantra in his head he would use before he went out. To kind of put him in that role.
Yeah.
Do you use mantras?
He's saying that some actors use a mantra in their head before they go out. No, the only thing I think is relax. Just relax. When I'm on a set and they go, action, I think, relax. Because that's the only way you're going to do anything is if you relax. If you're uptight, it's just going to be suck. Right? Yes, sir.
She talked about cooking earlier. There's a Star Trek Neelix cooking book. Have you actually cooked anything from that book?
Yeah, some of those recipes are mine. I wrote the jokes to that. And the other guy wrote the recipes. I wrote all the introductions, the funny introductions and stuff. I'm done? Guys, I'm done. You have a great audience. Thank you so much for all your questions and for this time together. All right. Take care, okay? Lock that line, everybody.